Good evening, friends, and a very warm welcome to the Weekend with Wonder Women, a series on women who broke the glass ceilings in their respective fields. I was watching a movie yesterday, Purna. It is a story about the youngest girl to climb Mount Everest at the tender age of 13. There was this dialogue in the film that I recall. Sometimes you make your choices, and sometimes your choices make you. This phrase perfectly describes the journey of our guest this evening. She graduated from St. Stephen College and at the tender age of 22 got married. However, she refused to bow down to the injustice that she faced in her marriage and decided to move out, giving her life a new direction and following her father's footsteps. She decided to become an advocate. As of today, she's an extremely successful advocate practicing independently for the last 34 years. She's been regularly appearing in district courts, high court, Supreme Court, consumer forums, you name it, and she's been there. She's also a member of Internal Complaint Committee formed under the Protection of Women from Sexual Harassment Act. Also a trained mediator of the Delhi High Court Mediation and Conciliation Center. Not to forget, she's one of the founder members of the National Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission Bar Association, Delhi, and at present is also its serving president. But her biggest strength is the cause that is closest to her heart: women and children. She is a renowned women activist and has appeared on various talk shows and news channels. It is a great honor and privilege to introduce to you all our Wonder Woman for today, Advocate Rekha Agarwal. Ma'am, we welcome you.
Thank you so much.
So, ma'am, it's been a long journey from St. Stephen's to being an advocate, practicing for more than 34 years. Please share something about your journey with us.
Neha, it has been a very, very interesting and eventful journey. God has been very kind, family has been very kind, and friends have also been very, very kind and supportive of this long journey. Yes, uh, it was very tough in the beginning because you made mention of my matrimonial life and how I refused to bow down because I thought that what was wrong is wrong. And as Gandhiji has said, that a person who tolerates injustice and wrongs in his life is himself wrong. So, with that in mind, I thought that if I myself was not guilty or if I had not done anything wrong, there was no reason for me to tolerate mental and physical abuse in my life. And yes, if I may share some very personal details of my life, though it does make me go down memory lane and those times of my life which I would like to forget. But yes, one has to move on in life. I had a very difficult married life. I got married into a very typical conservative family where a girl's education was not important at all, and all that mattered was the dowry, the fat dowry that she gets in the marriage. You mentioned about my having studied in St. Stephen's College. Yes, I was very lucky to have a very good education because my parents were very serious about the education of their children. And despite those times, and I'm talking about the 1960s, my parents made sure that I studied in a convent school. I went to Presentation Convent School in Delhi. And thereafter, I went to St. Stephen's College, which was a co-ed college, and my parents had to think twice about sending me there. But education was close to their heart, and my parents always thought that they should get me married only after I become professionally qualified and financially independent. But that was not to be, and in those times, in the 1980s, early 1980s, most parents got their daughters married off as soon as possible. Whenever they found what is called a suitable boy. So they did find a suitable boy according to their, you know, thinking process at that time. And I was married in a conservative family in Amritsar. But as I said, that not much importance was given to education, and mental and physical abuse was thought to be a norm of married life. I did suffer a lot of domestic abuse. I tolerated it initially because I thought that that is probably, things will become better with the passage of time. Yeah, so much so that even during my pregnancy, I suffered a lot of violence, a lot of physical violence, to the extent I was probably even going to have a miscarriage. But yes, I stuck on because those were the times when parents also, thought that you should kind of tolerate everything because things will become okay gradually. But things were not going to be good ultimately, and I realized that this was not my calling in life, to just suffer this kind of physical and domestic abuse. And God, as well as my family, my parents, have certainly given me that much confidence in myself that if I try, I can become a better human being, and I can become, financially independent, where I don't have to suffer that kind of abuse only because I happen to be somebody's wife. So, with that in mind, I ultimately had to leave a matrimonial, a home, even though I was not, qualified at that time. Thanks to my parents, my family, my relatives, close relatives, it was not very easy in the beginning, because in those times it was not very, common for women to walk out of their matrimonial home. I'm talking about the year 1985. But yes, with the confidence, with the support that I got of my family, I came back to Delhi, and I was in Amritsar at that time when I got married. I came back to Delhi and I joined LLB classes, and I never thought that I'll ever become a lawyer. I thought that I'm totally out of touch with studies now, with a couple of years that I spent in my matrimonial life. But it was difficult. Facing the world was very difficult. Yes, in 1987, 88, I used to feel extremely, shy, extremely inhibited to even step out of the house and tell people that, oh, I've come back after a broken marriage. But yes, as I said, God has been kind, family has been very kind, and I stuck on. And today, yes, I put in 34 years in the legal profession, and the very fact that today I'm a part of your series, CA Sansar, I think that I have come a long way. But yes, there are miles to go before I sleep, miles to go before I sleep, and I cannot be complacent about my journey. And I still think that I must put in more time, more energy in the legal profession, give more time to the society, so that I become an important member of the society, not just a lawyer.
So, ma'am, what were the initial challenges you faced when you decided to pursue a career in law, and how were you able to overcome them?
Neha, initially, yes, it was a difficult phase because uh, women are not looked upon very seriously, when they join the profession, because often uh, lady lawyers were either practicing with their husbands or practicing with their fathers. And so initially people did think that, I'm not going to last very long, and I'm probably just going to get bored or get more occupied with my household chores or with my family, and I may not be very serious about my profession. Yes, so it was difficult, and there were a lot of problems that one had to face when you step out of the house. The moment you step out the house and you see the big bad world, as they say, life can be a very big challenge. I was a young girl at that time. I was in my 20s. I think I was just about maybe 25 at that time. And I did face a lot of problems. I will not deny that. The first problem that any girl faces is sexual harassment, and I'm being very candid about that. There was a lot of sexual harassment while traveling. You know, being in the legal profession itself, you faced a lot of unwanted attention, a lot of physical and verbal abuse, a lot of overtures which were not welcome. Sometimes there was, again, I'll be very frank, sometimes there was a lot of harassment, even at the hands of judges. Yes, because nobody took you seriously. There were sometimes sexist comments which were passed. And women, I was just supposed to swallow it, because women are not supposed to make a demur about the problems that they have to face. But yes, it was a challenge. But I stuck on. I think at that time I had no choice but to stick on. But I'm glad I did, and it's now been 34 years. And probably because uh, I think one of the mantras, and one of the most important things that my parents taught me was to be serious about my work. And they said that, better now that you're in this profession, be serious about it. Just ignore whatever is there. Ignore the problems that you're facing, because if you are able to prove your metal, then everything else will become secondary. Uh, so I think that my perseverance paid off ultimately.
So how has your experience been with the judges? Are they support the female advocates? They're biased. How is the court atmosphere there?
Neha, initially, when I had just joined the profession, I did think, or rather felt, that the judges were not taking me very seriously. Because probably they thought that, again, as I said, that the typical, male chauvinistic approach was there, and women were not taken seriously in the profession. Not only I, but most women were not taken seriously in the profession. But once I proved, to the judges also, that here I'm not just a girl. I'm not just a girl who's coming to the court for a time pass, as they say, but I'm as good, if not better, than my male counterpart. I work hard on my cases. I do my homework before I come to the court, and I'm able to deliver. Deliver whatever I'm good at. Speaking. I have certain amount of verbal skills, and I'm able to do justice for my client. And I proved, and I have to prove to be an officer of the court. One thing that I was taught as a junior advocate, as an intern, was that you owe your duty not only to your client, but your first duty is to the court, because you are, what they say, an officer of the court. So I had to prove myself that I'm not only speaking just for my client, but I'm also aware of what is right and wrong. I'm not arguing unnecessarily just for the sake of my client, just to make him win, but I'm also aware of the lacuna of my case. So once I give that respect to the judges, that yes, as an officer of the court, I'm doing justice to my client, to the opposite counsel, and also to the court system, to the legal system, I gradually was taken seriously, and able to prove my worth in the court.
So, as you've been practicing independently, have you come across male clients who are wary of hiring a female lawyer or who doubt the capabilities just because one is a female? How do you deal with such people?
Yes, Neha, that's an interesting question. Yes, the male chauvinistic attitude used to, pervade in the society at that time, and it continues to exist even now to some extent. And there have been many interesting cases in my life where male clients came to me and they were very scared or very cautious of hiring a female lawyer, because one of the biggest drawbacks that is attached to a woman's personality is that probably she's going to be more domestic oriented. She's going to spend more time and energy to her household chores and her duties as a wife or a mother or a daughter-in-law. So earlier I used to face that problem where sometimes the clients used to ask me that, madam, आपको case देंगे तो will you be able to come to the court on time? Because सुबह का time होता है, the court starts at 10 o'clock. आप तो शायद time से आ भी नहीं पाएंगी. But I had to ultimately tell them that no, if there are female judges who take their seats at 10 o'clock sharp, in the district courts, and at 10:30 in the High Court and Supreme Court. So even I can be serious about my work, and I am serious about my work. Please trust me. So I had to imbibe that feeling of trust in them. And sometimes when clients want to come home and discuss their cases late in the evening, that is another problem that particularly male clients used to have. That, madam, if we come to your house or if we come to your office in the evening, we cannot come to you in the daytime. Will you be able to spend time and energy in having a conference with us, discussing our case for the next day? So those kind of practical problems or practical issues very often men had in their minds before engaging women lawyers. And something very funny that I would like to share over here is that there was one instance where a male client, despite having paid me my initial amount of fees for drafting a case, for having a conference and drafting a case, and I had started working on that. The very next day, he came back and wanted his money back. And I was very naive at that time. It was just about 4 or 5 years, I think, in the profession. And I very innocently returned the fees, to him. And he went back, and later I learned that he's gone to a male lawyer. The male lawyer happened to be a friend of mine. And when I saw him, with this client, I asked him as to how come he came to you, because initially he was my client, what went wrong? Did he say anything about me? He said, yes, Rekha, you'll be surprised. This client, he told me that, मैंने madam से case इसलिए वापस ले लिया because madam was so thin. I was a thin girl at that time and very, very thin. I put on a lot of weight now. So this client had the audacity, this male client who was a fat, rotund person, I remember very well, a fat, rotund businessman. And, he had the gall to challenge the fact that, that whether I'd be even able to speak in the court. And he said, मैडम इतनी पतली है पता नहीं कोर्ट में भी कुछ बोल पाएंगी कि नहीं पाएंगी कोई दूसरे लॉयर की आवाज के सामने वो दब ना जाए. So these are the kind of challenges that one has had to face. But yes, probably with the passage of time, people have realized that sometimes being a woman has been an advantage also, and probably with experience. And here I'll be probably saying a very feminist thing. Not many people will like it, but now I've realized that men are honest enough to say that, madam, we've come to you because we realize that women are more serious about their work. They're more honest, more serious about their work. So we have chosen to come to a lady lawyer and not go to a male lawyer. Probably some people have had unfortunate experiences, and that has been a blessing for me.
So, ma'am, you also frequently appear on various news channels for talk shows, etc. So, when was your first appearance on TV? What was the experience like?
I think my first experience on appearing for a TV channel was Star News, what we call ABP News now. And it was probably about 15 years ago. And I remember that very, very well. Remember that day very well. I felt like I was a big star, myself, whereas I was just another lawyer. And they invited me to speak on a women-related issue, which was close to my heart. And I remember distinctly that this was a case about a male professor of a college somewhere in Bihar who was having an extramarital affair. And his wife had caught him red-handed and she had beaten him in public. So the issue was that whether a woman had a right to raise her hand on her husband. A man who's supposed to be her Pati Parmeshwar. So I remember the anchor of the show asking me that, Madam, what do you have to say about this? Should she have raised her hand? And my answer to that was that nobody should raise his hand or her hand on any person. Physical abuse is not to be tolerated or to be accepted. But yes, if a man can raise his hand on his woman, if he finds that she has been infidel or if she's cheated in the marriage, then if he can lose his temper, so can a woman. Why should a woman just accept her husband cheating on her, and if the husband is not willing to come to his senses, I don't think that the woman did anything wrong by raising her hand on her husband. Not to say that she should do it again, but yes, a man and woman are equal in a relationship. So that was a very interesting, topic on which I had to speak on in Star News.
So, ma'am, who is your role model? Who has inspired you a lot in life?
I think that first of all, my mother has been my role model more than my father. Despite the fact that women are more, girls are more closer to their fathers. I have been, of course, very close to my dad, but my role model has been my mother, who, despite the fact that she belongs to another generation, the older generation, she's now almost 82 years of age, but she has been a graduate, despite coming from a conservative Marwari family of Rajasthan. And she is the one who stood by me, encouraged me always to be good at whatever I do, first of all. Whatever I do, you have to be good at it. You cannot be just a mediocre person. And she was the one who encouraged me to stand on my feet after my marriage failed. more than my father. I'll be honest over here, more than my father, more than my brother. It was a mother who encouraged me to study. She said, "It is if anything is going to stand by you in life, it is going to be your education, it is going to be your professional qualification, and your financial independence, which is most necessary, whether you're anybody's wife, whether you're anybody's daughter, whether you're anybody's sister. That is going to be most important." So I think my mother has been my role model for supporting me through thick and thin and encouraging me and pushing me even now to work harder, push harder in whatever I do, and shine in the legal profession.
So, ma'am, as you're totally a self-made woman, but behind every success, there are a lot of unknown, unheard sacrifices. I'm sure there would have been numerous times when your work took precedent over your family. What were your feelings at that point of time?
Yes, Neha, I'm glad you asked that because the legal profession is a very, very demanding profession. It's not less just like a 9 to 5 job, or it's not like a doctor just treating a patient and now, and after that, the patient has to look after his life himself and God be with him. The legal profession needs a lot of time, it needs a lot of energy. And yes, because most of the time when you're in the court, a lot of time gets wasted over there because you're just waiting for your case to be called out. So very often from 10 to 4 in the evening, all that you've done is stand behind, stand in a courtroom waiting for a turn to come. And after 4 p.m., most lawyers have to start another day, when they have to sit in their offices, prepare for their briefs for the next day, meet old clients, meet new clients, and then come back home and then study. You have to do a lot of research. You have to hone up your skills. You have to know a lot of case law, which you can cite in the court while arguing your case. So yes, I did feel that the legal profession was demanding, and when particularly initially, when my son was very young, I used to feel that I'm not able to devote as much time and energy that I should be doing to my son and to my family, especially when his homework was concerned, or class projects were concerned. Um, but so it was almost like multitasking because I never wanted to lag behind in my duty as a mother. So yes, it did take a toll on on my health also. It takes away your peace of mind, it takes away your energy. But yes, I did feel guilty sometimes when I was not able to devote as much time to my son or to my parents, not able to contribute, to the household chores. So, as I just said, yes, a woman has to do multitasking. It's like juggling with balls. But yes, one has to. It's a balancing act at the end of the day.
So, you shared little things about your parents, how supportive they were. You have a son. Would you like to share something more about your family?
Yes, my family has been a wonderful family, and I think all parents and all families are wonderful for their children. Not only my parents and my family. My father, has been in the legal had been in the legal profession. Unfortunately, we lost him about 5 years ago. He was initially a judge, in the civil courts in Delhi in Tisazari, but he opted out after a few years, and he ultimately joined the Delhi Cloth Mills, and he retired as a general manager law of DCM. My mother, I've already spoken about her. And my brother, too, is a lawyer. And he's elder to me. He's a lawyer by profession. He's practicing in Delhi. And I've been blessed with a child, a son, who's now about 35 years of age. He's an engineer and an MBA. God has been very kind. I was able to put him in the best school and college. Uh, Currently, he's working with the Tata Administrative Service in Delhi. Family has been my support, my foundation. I would have been nowhere without my family.
So, after a long day in court, how do you unwind yourself, your hobbies, passion, interests?
Um Reading, yes, reading fiction, which light fiction, and spend time on listening to music. Yes, that is continuously playing on. And nowadays, of course, like most youngsters and most people in society, I spend time on social media, which may not be very productive. Yes, but going on the internet, I spend time on Facebook and Twitter, etc. But not a very nice thing to do. I must be honest. But yes, it also helps me, to go on the internet and know about world affairs and what is happening in the legal profession, because the internet gives you easy access to information and knowledge, at the click of a finger. So yes, that is how I spend my time. Earlier, I used to spend a lot of time on meditation, because I was fascinated by, Mahesh Yogi. So I used to spend some time on meditation and yoga at that time. Nowadays, I do a little bit of pranayam. Our Prime Minister Modi has been, in talking so much about yoga. So yes, once in a while, though I should be more regular about it, I do pranayam, so that my lungs become more stronger more than anything else. Do a little bit of breathing exercise, go for walks in my colony, and that's it. Yes.
So you earlier also gave a webinar on Consumer Protection Act on our channel. What, according to you, are the upcoming fields a newly qualified lawyer can successfully pursue?
Neha, Consumer Protection Act is certainly the consumer movement is a very big movement in our country. There was a time when the manufacturers and traders and shopkeepers thought that once a thing is sold, it is sold, and if the goods are not proper, or if the services are not proper, for example, the travel industry, or the hospitality industry, any insurance, banking, etc., etc. A customer was not valued at all. But as Gandhiji has said, that the very industry survives because of the customer. The customer is the king, the consumer is the king. So I think that now people have become very aware of their rights. More and more, there is more money power also. People are earning, there are more earners. In fact, most families have got husband and wife, everybody is earning. So now with dual incomes being there, people are spending a lot of money on buying things and services which earlier were not considered very necessary. They were thought to be luxurious items. So I think that the Protection Act is a very nascent field, which people can still, the young lawyers can spend their time and energy on. At the same time, the Prime Minister has spoken about the Jago movement. So I think that young lawyers can probably concentrate on the Consumer Protection Act as a very developing, field of law. And another very interesting field of law that has come up is the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So I think that earlier we just had the company court, the company law tribunal, but with the IRB being there, Insolvency Code being there, NCLT is there, in the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal is there, because the Competition Court of India has not been very successful. So more and more people are now going to the, with the NCLT. I think that young lawyers can concentrate on that. And most importantly, I think that young lawyers should use their time and energy for working on legal aid cases, pro bono cases. In my initial days when I became a lawyer, I did not have many cases. One had yet to establish the legal practice. So I volunteered to become what is called an amicus curiae, which translates into friend of the court. So I volunteered to be amicus curiae in the Supreme Court, where I was spending my time and energy on appearing for, particularly for in criminal cases, where many people who are languishing in jail for want of a lawyer. So I used my time productively for that. I became an amicus curiae in the Supreme Court, and also what we have in Delhi, which is called the Delhi Legal Aid and Advisory Service, DLSSA. So I think that young lawyers should, if they do not have enough work, and that is at the same time, initially you do not have enough work to establish your practice, and you also owe something to the society. It's not everything that you have to work for your own self, earn money for your own self. There is something you have to give back to society. So I think my message to young lawyers will be that, besides setting up your independent practice, try to give back to society, volunteer to become an amicus curiae in the various courts that are there, also become a part of the Delhi, the legal aid services, and contribute your bit over there. So in this way, you will not only be, giving back to society, contributing to society, doing some social work, but you'll also be improving your own legal skills.
So, ma'am, as you've established such a successful practice, please guide our viewers who are young, especially females, how they can also establish an independent practice.
The mantra for establishing your practice and becoming successful is just hard work. As the old saying goes, genius is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. I think anybody who joins the any profession, and particularly the legal profession, it is a very demanding profession, and one has to be serious. So one has to be serious about the work, seriousness and integrity and honesty. Uh, don't forget that, that you have to be good at your work. Only then people are going to recognize your worth. uh, Good looks don't matter. Looks can matter, as I say, that what is more important, beauty or brains? So I think that what is more important is brains. That is something which will go a long way, which will, as I say, make you a horse that is going to win the race ultimately. Lambi daud ka ghoda. Be good at your work. Don't forget that, don't overlook the voice of your conscience. If your conscience says that you're doing something wrong, don't overlook that. Don't stifle your conscience. Be good at your work. And ultimately, where women are concerned, yes, they have a little bit more extra mile to walk, because despite the fact that we are there in the 21st century, you know uh, women have to work a little harder to prove their mettle. Uh, that male chauvinistic approach still stands. It still remains. People initially do not take women seriously because they think that women are not good at their work. They're not going to be serious about their work. But ultimately, if you are able to prove your mettle, you can show that you're as good as your male counterpart, if not better.
Ma'am, lastly, please share your views on the Female Achiever series that CS Ansar has organized, featuring a lot of accomplished women who've really worked hard to be at the top today.
I think my congratulations and kudos goes to the CA Sansar series, a very, very productive series that you have started. It is going to be an eye opener for people who do not take women achievers seriously. People forget that, when you criticize any woman, who's not a part of your family, you forget that you probably have a mother uh, who has been an achiever. You probably have a wife who's an achiever, a sister or a daughter who has been an achiever or can be an achiever. We tend to kind of overlook the women at our own house. So, and in our own house and our own family and in society. So, I think the CA series that you have started is going to be, probably be a role model for many people who watch this. Congratulations to you. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Rekha ma'am. After hearing Rekha ma'am's story, only one thought is replaying in my head, that all the empowered women have one thing in common. That is, they have strong fathers who encourage their daughters to speak up, as Rekha ma'am's father gave her unconditional support and love. I can't really thank you enough for sparing your valuable time and being with us today. I'm sure your journey will inspire many more women to embrace their dreams, follow their heart, and cherish life.
Thank you so much. Thank
A
you so
little
much. Thank you so much, C.S. Ansar. Thank you, Vivek ji.
token of appreciation for CA Vivek Khurana, who has been instrumental in conceptualizing and organizing this series. Thank you all for joining us today. Our evenings are always incomplete without you. Till we meet again with another Wonder Women, stay positive, work hard, and you can make it happen.